When the day of the Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues, as the Spirit enabled them. Now they were staying in Jerusalem, God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard their own language being spoken. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, "What does this mean?"
Well, good morning. My name is Cheeseman, and I'm the youth director here at ZUMC. And this week, I had the pleasure of teaching our Bible story time, where I was more commonly known as Ranger Cheese, along with my helpers, Ranger Ethan and Ranger Jack. We got to spend each day with your kiddos, teaching them these stories all about Jesus. But today, I want to go back and retell those stories one more time, and then tell you one more Bible story. Does that sound fun? Yes, awesome. So first, we're going to go back and review our stories in Bible points. So each day in Bible story, we had a campsite in a new pretend location where we would share stories around a campfire all about Jesus. And sometimes we were even joined by special guests to tell these stories. And each time we always ended with a Bible point. So again, like I said, we're going to tell those Bible stories one more time, and we're going to repeat the Bible points. And kids, I'm going to need your help, just like you did a few minutes ago. You ready? So on Monday, we learned about Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist. We also learned that even though John the Baptist knew Jesus and saw him with his own eyes, he still had questions about who Jesus really was. We learned that it's okay to ask questions because Jesus always comes to us in the midst of the questions and reveals the truth. Our Bible point for Monday was, when we wonder, we can. That was pretty good. We're going to do four more of those, so I think that each time we get a little louder. How about that? All right, on Tuesday, we learned about Jesus telling people to look at nature when they worry, because it reminds them that God is always taking care of us, just like he always takes care of the birds and the flowers. We also heard a story about a lost sheep and learned that Jesus always comes looking for us when we feel lost or alone. Our Bible point for Tuesday was, when we feel alone, we can. Oh, much better. You guys are getting a little bit better. Very good. So on Wednesday, we heard a story from a Roman officer who time traveled all the way to Bible story time just to tell us this story. He told us he was extremely powerful and he commanded whole armies. But when his friend became sick, he felt very powerless and he went to Jesus for help. We learned that when we feel helpless or overwhelmed, we can go to Jesus. Our Bible point for Wednesday was, when we feel powerless, we can. Excellent. On Thursday, this was the hardest day. We learned about how Jesus died, something that left his followers and his disciples sad and confused. But we also learned that Jesus came back to life, showing that God can do anything and make beautiful things out of our hardest days. We learned that we can always put our hope in Jesus, because he can do anything. Our Bible point for Thursday was, when we hope, we can. And then finally, on Friday, it was our last day with our kiddos, so we learned about the last day that Jesus spent with his disciples. He took them up on a big mountain and gave them a special mission. They were supposed to tell everyone that they could about who Jesus is and change the whole world. This was a really big job, and big jobs like this can be really scary. But Jesus reminded them that they are never alone and that he would be with them forever. Our Bible point on Friday was, when we need help, we can. Excellent job. Now that was a lot of Bible. And I'm so glad I got to teach you all of these stories with Ranger Ethan and Ranger Jack. I love all of these stories about Jesus. They are so special, and they really help us understand who Jesus is. They guide us towards trusting him fully. But something that can be really hard for us when we read the Bible is that the people in the Bible, like the disciples, they got to spend time with Jesus. That sort of made it easier for them to trust him. They got to spend time with him in physical space, ask him questions, ask him about what he was doing, see him healing with their own eyes. And we don't always get that chance. Lucky for us, like Dave said, VBS Sunday is about the very first time those disciples had to do it on their own. This is a special holiday in the church that we call Pentecost. Can you guys say Pentecost? All right, adults, I know that's way less cool than when Dave teaches you fancy Greek words, but I think it's still important for us to learn. Okay, Pentecost is the day that we celebrate the very beginning of the church, and it's all based around the story we read this morning. In this story, the disciples were gathering with a small group of followers after Jesus had ascended to heaven. Suddenly, a great wind came and filled the house that they were sitting in. And even though they were all from different places all over the world and spoke different languages, they could suddenly understand each other. These little flames appeared on their foreheads too. They were amazed and confused by what happened. They didn't know what it meant. And that's when Peter, the leader of the church, one of the 11 disciples, got up and he preached a sermon from the prophet Joel, a book in the Old Testament. He told them that this power, the wind and the flame, the speaking the same languages, was power from the Holy Spirit. It had come to be with them and to give them strength. It wasn't long before this that the disciples had seen Jesus come back to life and been with him on a mountain when he gave them the instructions to tell others about him and what he had done and taught them. But now, Jesus had ascended to heaven. He wasn't physically with them. They were like us, unable to see the physical Jesus in their presence, unable to ask him questions or speak with him and be with him like they had before. But even now, just like Jesus promised them, they weren't alone. They had received great power from the Holy Spirit. They were even given leaders that they could trust, like Peter and the other disciples, and they had a community that was healthy and full of love and life, that cared for each other. All of these things were ways in which Jesus was still showing up for them in this moment. Not as a real physical person, but as the love and the power that they shared between them. They couldn't see Jesus, not with their eyes, but they could feel Jesus with their hearts. I'm going to invite a special guest up here to help me illustrate what this means for us. Jack, Ranger Jack, you want to come on up? All right, Ranger Jack was a very special member because not only did he help us in Bible story, he was also a character in our wilderness adventure skits, right, Jack? All right, so Jack, we're going to play a little bit of catch. Are you ready? First time, Jack is so nervous about this. I just want you to know ahead of time. First time, I'm just going to toss you the ball. You're going to look at me. All you got to do is catch it. You ready? Oh, so good. All right, now the fact that we just did that is impressive. Neither of us are athletes, but, you know. All right, Jack, this time you're going to turn around, and I want you to catch it. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh. All right, Jack, was it easier to catch the ball when you could see it or when you couldn't see it? Yeah. It's a lot easier to do things when we can see them. Thanks, Jack. You can head on down. So we can't always see Jesus with our eyes, just like Jack couldn't see the ball when he was turned around. But that doesn't mean that Jesus isn't there, reaching out to us, guiding us, and giving us strength. I'm going to put this down before I throw it. Instead of focusing our eyes on Jesus, we have to focus our hearts and our minds and our strength on Jesus. Just like the disciples had to do when they were on their own at the Pentecost. And so I love to end with a list, so I have one for you. Are you ready? We need to remember Jesus when we're making decisions that are both really big and really small. We need to remember Jesus when we're choosing how to treat those around us. We need to remember that he taught us to treat them with love. We need to remember Jesus when things get hard and we don't know what to do. And we need to remember Jesus when we have big feelings and treat ourselves with a compassion, just like Jesus would. When we remember Jesus and focus our hearts and minds on him, we begin to notice that he is always with us, always around us. We learn to always trust Jesus, just like those early followers did on Pentecost Sunday. So, like I said, each day in Bible story time, we would end with our Bible point. So for our sermon today, I'm giving you a bonus Bible point. If you came to VBS Sunday, you get an extra one. Are you ready? We're gonna do this. We're gonna try it. Are you ready? Even when we can't see him, we can. That was good. This is the last one though, so we're gonna do it one more time as loud as you can without screaming. Are you ready? Even when we can't see him, we can. That was so good. Awesome. So now we have a few more songs to sing. So kids, I want you to invite you back up and come stand on the steps.